Good afternoon, everyone. My name is not Tom Davidson. I'm John Chapman. I'm the co-founder of EverFi, the taller and better looking version of our founding executive team. I serve as our president and started the business with Tom 10 years ago. Unfortunately, he had to leave the conference a little early, so I'm going to pinch hit for him today, tell you a little bit about our business at EverFi and who we are and where we're headed. When we started the business at EverFi, we looked at the issue of critical skills, issues that really put a lot of pressure on communities, really some of the more intractable issues that affected communities at whole, but particularly schools. And we looked at ways in which those issues were being addressed in the classroom, issues like financial literacy, which was our flagship content area, issues that related to careers and how students were making decisions about whether to go to college or not. And we found a system that was broken in the way in which those skills were being taught in the classroom, and then as it turned out, also in other segments within the education universe in K-12 and in the workplace as well. And so we set out to build a learning platform that started to tackle those issues and started to bring, hopefully, some solutions to bear at scale to K-12 schools, to universities, and into the workplace. And so we started EverFi. And instead of thinking about our business as one in which we were going to interact directly with schools and ask them to pay for our technology, we decided to create a model where we got a third party to come in, license that technology, private label it as their own initiative, and give them all the credit. So we were just sort of an Intel chip inside, powering a network of users trying to address these skills at scale across the country. So when you boil that down to a definition, we are a software as a service company that takes those real world education, those critical skills I mentioned that I'll go into more detail in a moment, and we take learners of all ages through them using our learning platform, using kind of the scalable digital learning solutions we've created at EverFi. So to take you back a little bit to our founding, we just passed our 10-year anniversary this past January, exciting milestone for us, certainly something every entrepreneur wants to get to, and we are proud that we've gotten there. When we started, though, we've got a tremendous network of users that I'll get to on the right side of the screen. But I want to tell you a little bit about our founding, because I think it kind of helps understand the texture and the uniqueness of the network we've built. Instead of bringing our software out to some of the more common places you'd bring it out to K-12 districts, whether they be large urban or well-funded districts that were doing innovative things in technology, we took our technology to some of the poorest communities in our country. And Coosa County, Alabama is amongst the black belt counties that sort of surround that middle part of the state. And in Coosa County, they weren't getting all the innovative solutions that you'd expect from K-12. Education providers like us, and we wanted to go there. We wanted to make sure that if we were going to go belly up and fail as a business, that some of the poorer communities like Coosa County, like Marks, Mississippi, like Native American reservations in different parts of the country got our stuff first. And that's been a really big founding principle of the uniqueness of our network and where it came from and sort of who our DNA and our ethos is. From those early beginnings, though, we have scaled to reaching over 20 million learners across the US and Canada to date, hopefully globally soon. And we've reached 25,000 schools on K-12, 1,500 in college and higher ed. And as you can see there, we've got about 730 financial institution partners. So from that very beginning idea of taking financial literacy and teaching it to high school students, we've got 730 companies that are powering programs in communities they care about around these issues. We're also really proud of the unique investor team that's gotten behind us. We have raised $251 million in equity over the last 8 years. We started with some early investors. Jeff Bezos and Eric Schmidt have been with us in our A and B round, all the way up to about a year ago. We raised our D round from the TPG Rise network, and many of the leaders you see, their smiling faces, are part of that initiative or have just invested on their own. So certainly a group that we really feel like brings some heat to the issues that we're trying to address. So let me get to what those are. So as you can see on the business overview here, and I'll get into some detail as to how these get organized, but we serve 3 distinct segments: K-12, higher ed, and the employer marketplace. And you can see some of the some of the topics we try to address there. We continue to be a very fast-growing company. We try to model ourselves, even though we're having social impact. It was a big reason Rise made an investment in us. We measure ourselves against some of the growth rates of the best SaaS companies out there. So we've had 40% year-over-year growth between 17 and 16, and have almost 500 employees from our headquarters in DC to offices in Chicago, Boston, and Walnut Creek, California. So on the K-12 side, I want to go through a couple of the big organizational groups that we work with. So we started with financial literacy 10 years ago. That was the basis of the company. We thought financial literacy could be taught more effectively using technology in high schools, and we thought there was an appetite from the private sector to bring those programs to bear at scale, and that's proven out. We now work with over 16 million learners. As I said earlier, 730 plus institutions. You can see there some of the biggest financial services institutions in the world. They make up what we call our financial capability network. One of the things that's been really interesting is we've been able to not only develop common appreciation for how to use our technology amongst educators when we bring it to schools, but with something like the Financial Capability Network, we've also seen a common camaraderie and sort of a network effect of organizations who look to each other to solve these issues. So in financial education, we still have that core K-12 business, but we've also evolved into becoming much more of a consumer-facing business. We power a lot of the education of these companies, not just in the community, but amongst their customers, amongst their employees and other constituencies. So this is really, it was the first idea we went after in 2008. It continues today in 2018 to be an enormous opportunity for us. Global partnerships is sort of the other half of K-12, and you can see the best way to kind of think about this business is it's every topic area that's not financial education. Okay, and you can see there's an incredibly diverse and exciting set of organizations that get behind us, and they get behind us for different topics like you see there on the screen: career issues, bullying prevention, civic engagement, healthy relationships, and entrepreneurship. These are all things that we share kind of traits with financial literacy, but obviously are different, and different organizations that may not be financial institutions are motivated to get behind. One of the more interesting parts of this business over the last 4 years or so is the professional sports world has really embraced this model. We have become sort of a community outsourced partner of all 4 major professional sports leagues, running programs for them across their entire club footprint. And it's been a really cool platform to see students be inspired and engaged by some of their favorite professional athletes. In higher ed, this is work that we're incredibly proud of. We work with over 70% of the leading US colleges and universities around really important high-pressure issues on campus, issues that are around sexual assault and the prevention thereof, alcohol responsibility, and obviously the continued need to prevent student loan default. These are all typically very focused programs that work with students and faculty at key parts of their journey in higher ed, beginning when they're first-year students. Many students will go through and take our programs on a kind of pre-orientation basis over the summer before they matriculate in the fall. And they'll also work on our programs at other key points in their kind of 2 to 4 year journey. This, as the Campus Prevention Network, is again, just like with those corporate partners, there's been a tremendous camaraderie and sort of network effect of sharing best practices. Every June we have a prevention summit in Boston, and we bring hundreds. We had 650 campus practitioners that are out there talking about how they're addressing these issues and collaborating with each other. So it's been a very, very powerful program, and one where we've also really measured its effect. We have tremendous evidence-based programs. In fact, just this week, we were the first company to publish an evidence-based research project on the effects of sexual assault prevention on college campuses. So for those interested, certainly I'd recommend checking that out, and something we're really proud of to try to stand behind our work as well as making sure it's having the intended outcome. On the corporate compliance side, this is a business that we've been in now for a couple of years. We made a couple of acquisitions over the last 2 years and acquired organizations that we were competing against in higher ed, but we're also serving the employer marketplace. And our investment thesis was these same issues exist in the corporate compliance marketplace. Things like diversity and inclusion, obviously anti-harassment, the macro environment of the unfortunate Me Too movement has certainly caught the attention of employers, and we feel like we have an effective educational solution to help them really, sort of inoculate their workforce around how to make the right decisions and how to avoid ones that are obviously quite problematic. So I talked about critical skills earlier, some of those issues that that we're trying to address. And this flywheel, it's a little confusing. I'm not going to go through it all because it has a lot of detail in it, but you can kind of see these are the buckets from financial education to health and wellness, STEM, diversity and inclusion. These are some of the content areas that we provide out to K-12 schools as well as colleges and universities. You can see they all kind of share a common characteristic in that they're not the core subjects that schools are obviously responsible and charged with teaching around reading, math, English language arts. These are the things that kind of put pressure on students, again, put pressure on communities, as I said at the beginning of my presentation. So how do we do it in the classroom? And this is really getting into a little bit of what the user sees. We've created incredibly engaging, as you can see, media-rich user experiences. And these are just a sampling of what a student would see in a K-12 classroom around some of these issues. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see one of our professional sports league partnerships with the National Hockey League. We're actually using the game of hockey to teach kids about STEM and inspire them towards careers as they try to sort of win the virtual Stanley Cup through that instructional journey. All the way to the upper left-hand corner where you can see we take students through the floor of the New York Stock Exchange so they understand the basics of investing. And again, for students in Coosa County, Alabama, who are probably never going to get to the floor, likely not going to get to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, it's an incredibly powerful experience for them to go through that. These courses are typically 4 to 6 hours, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little less. They're done and used during the classroom period of time. One of the things that we're really proud of is that this isn't just a sort of nice to have. This is something that's embedded within a teacher's lesson plan, and I'll get to it in a moment how we do that. We do that with this team. We made a very important strategic decision early on, probably about 8 years ago, when we raised our Series A, and we thought, how are we going to build out our team? What are we going to do with our use of proceeds here? As a software company, we pride ourselves on scalability and being everywhere at once, and obviously that's what technology does. But we realized to succeed in this business, especially on the K-12 side, you had to have feet on the street. You had to have people who were local in the communities, building relationships with the educators and administrators. And I'm proud to say we've got 67 former teachers. The team itself is probably about 150 full-time employees. These are not contractors. They live here in San Diego, they live in Vancouver, Canada, they live in Boston, they live in DC, they live all over the US and Canada, as you can see, through 32 states and 5 Canadian provinces. And these are the folks who help us get that curriculum into the lesson plan of teachers to be a resource. And so these are folks that, I like to say, we've built up the network with the secret sauce, and the secret sauce are these folks. And it wasn't an easy decision. Our investors weren't really crazy about the initial overhead that it brought on to our P&L, but I think at the end of the day, it's been a great decision. So lastly, when we're out there doing what we're doing, we're really trying to have impact, and we're trying to measure it, and we're trying to do it from unique perspective. This particular photo I love because Jonathan Taves has won 3 Stanley Cups with the Chicago Blackhawks. Every year in February, he visits a public school in Chicago to promote the Future Goals program, which is our partnership with the NHL, and in this case, obviously, with the Blackhawks in Chicago. It's just an incredibly powerful experience to see, an accomplished professional athlete high-five a kid, tell him it's important that not only, they could be him, that you don't want to quash anyone's dreams of becoming a professional athlete, but at the end of the day, their chances of becoming an engineer or doing something that is technical around the game or in the STEM industry, their chances of doing that are a lot higher. So we're trying to really change the trajectory of those, for those students using unique relationships like this. But at the end of the day, we go back to the fact that we are trying to solve some really difficult issues. We feel like the network we've built up, the software we've built, the team we have is moving the needle against these. And we're excited that these public-private partnerships have come together to create these unique programs and really power the work we do at EverFi. So with that, I thank you. And I think I have 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So I can take, I guess, a couple questions, if there are any. If they're not, that's fine as well. Yes, sir. No, I think we've made a commitment from the very beginning, and I've extended a value proposition to teachers and administrators that the program is going to be free. And we've developed a reliable enough revenue pattern with our licenses that what we're getting from that corporate sponsorship structure is as good, if not better, than we could selling to a district. So no plans to make that shift at any point. Yes? It's a great question. The question was, is it all online or is it also tools that teachers can use? Primarily, the course is all a self-paced virtual experience that a student goes through. So if they're learning financial literacy in high school, they're learning, as I mentioned, about investments by going through the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. They're doing that on their own. It's pacing them, it's adapting them, it's tracking their progress, it's coming back to a custom LMS that we have behind it that teachers use. We do also provide kind of learning extension resources that teachers can use to sort of augment a blended classroom. So it's not 100% just online with the student going through that virtual experience. But the primary value we bring is we become a really, and I think I'm proud of this, we become a very trusted kind of critical skills curriculum partner of districts. They look to us as a tool to help them teach these really sticky issues. Because one of the things that we found is when you think about some of the issues we're teaching, think about financial literacy for a moment. A teacher who's up there in front of the classroom may not be comfortable teaching that. They may have an awful credit score. They may not know the first thing about the stock market. Technology and creating this virtual experience creates a neutral medium that really disarms that fear, and so teachers really find that piece of it to be very, very helpful. Yes, sir? Yep. Yep. Sure. Yeah. It's a great question about efficacy, measurement outcomes, especially around teaching financial literacy to young people. This particular issue is tricky. I first of all acknowledge that it's hard. I tell that to everyone I go into to have these conversations. The good news for us, at least, is we built up enough partnerships at enough scale where we're starting to crack that code. Mass Mutual's foundation is one of our largest financial services partners that promotes middle school-based financial literacy, and we've embarked on at the beginning of a study with them and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst to try to kind of come up with some of those outcomes. So more to come on that. It's not an easy task, so thank you. I'm getting my stop signal, so happy to follow up with anyone offline.